What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content that I put out. Two marquee top of the table clashes before I give some thoughts on AFCON. Starting in the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen's win over Bayern Munich. The difference between this game and past title races when Dortmund have been going up against Bayern was staggering. There was always this sense of inevitability that Bayern were going to do what they needed to do against Dortmund in those head-to-head matchups to find a way to win the league. You could argue it is the reason Dortmund didn't win the Bundesliga last season, is because they couldn't take 4 points off of Bayern. Maybe they get a draw, or maybe they even win at home, but there's always that disaster waiting at the Allianz Arena. I've talked about this. It is part of the formula for pulling off an upset in one of these leagues, is you've got to find a way to at least leave that head-to-head even so you're not putting yourself in a hole. It's hard enough to just be better than Bayern the other games, or to be equal to Bayern. It's that much more difficult when you have to make up ground the rest of the way as well. And so Leverkusen come into this game with an opportunity to really take control of this title race. And Bayern possessed the ball for the first 10 minutes or so. Leverkusen almost score before they do score. And of course, it's your Bayern loanee who gets the goal. And the game was basically over right there. Leverkusen were sensational. It felt inevitable from about the 15th minute on, but not in Bayern's direction. It was the exact opposite. That you just went, oh, Leverkusen are going to win this game. They're clearly the better team. And you combine this performance with what they've done the rest of the season. They still haven't lost, by the way. And they check every single box, which is something you could have never said about these Dortmund teams. And I've made this point as well. These past couple seasons, Bayern have stooped down to a level where Dortmund were capable of maybe catching them. This Bayern team is still on pace to put up more points than any team since 2019-20. And they are clinging on to hope that they can get back in this title race because Leverkusen have this thing under control at this point. If you were to beat the Harry Kane Bayern Munich team, and you were to beat Bayern after the embarrassment of last season, even though they found a way to win, you were going to have to reach a level and actually go take this from Bayern. That is exactly what Leverkusen are doing. Bayern haven't been great this season, but they've been significantly better than they were the past couple, at least last season. And Leverkusen have been that much better than Bayern. What they are doing, what Xabi Alonso is doing, is absolutely remarkable. This collection of players, Jeremy Frimpong comes in, scores the third goal. Alex Grimaldo gets the second. He's one of the best players in the Champions League last season. Nobody should be surprised he's playing as well as he is. He was that good before he got, and you get him on a free transfer. I mean, these guys are just really good. And so there's going to be fallout eventually from this from Bayern, assuming Leverkusen go on to win. But that's where I want to stop right now. We'll have to see how the rest of the season go. But Leverkusen were not fazed, do not appear bothered at all by the magnitude of what they are doing. That is a credit to every player in that locker room. That's a credit to the club. That's a credit to, obviously, Xabi Alonso. Dortmund looked scared in these moments. That they just knew they weren't going to be able to do it when the lights got the brightest. Leverkusen showed up, showed out, and Bundesliga is theirs to lose now as a result. The other one, Real Madrid and Girona. Real Madrid take this easily. You do get a Jude Bellingham injury, so he's going to be out for a little bit. That's your one downside here. And this was the difference between Girona and Leverkusen heading into these games. Leverkusen had built themselves an advantage where you thought that they might actually be able to do this. Girona had just found a way to hang in there with Real Madrid and stay within striking distance. Then you get this game. Real Madrid say, yeah, goodbye. That was how this was always going to go. I would have been stunned if Girona had even gotten a draw out of this. You didn't have that same sense of inevitability that you started to have with Leverkusen, that you thought maybe they might just be able to do this. And then you actually watch what they did against Bayern. And they just look so convincing. You never had that same kind of, that's the better way to put it. Inevitability is too strong for it, but that convincing feeling about Girona. They're having a great season. It's a interesting, great, if you want to feel that way, story with their connections to City, the way this is happening, their collection of players. It just never felt like they were really on Real Madrid's level. Whereas it seemed like Leverkusen, just week in, week out, no matter what the competition, were going to give Bayern a run for their money at the very least. And Real Madrid pretty much closed the door on La Liga. And barring something horrific, they're going to win the league. They get a statement win. The African Cup of Nations, now over. And it is the team of destiny, Ivory Coast, winning on home soil. This is the same team that fired their manager earlier in this tournament. This is the same team that nearly didn't even get to the knockout stage. And here they are, AFCON champions. They also won this competition in 2015. That's the last time. The interesting part of this is that then, after a string of making the World Cup, having some success, just generally being one of the better teams in Africa, right after those World Cups, you win AFCON, like I said. They've missed in 2018. They missed in 2022 in terms of World Cups. Haven't been a major factor in terms of deep runs in AFCON. This all just kind of came out of nowhere. And it does feel like the storybook thing, and I talked about that last week, that seems like they're this team of destiny. You can't take that for granted, though. If anything, we've learned anything in AFCON, is that you can't just assume somebody's going to do what they're supposed to. But it opened up for them. They did have to go through Nigeria in this final. They fall behind. They get 2 goals in the second half to win. And to top it all off, this unbelievable story, if you could pick a player to encapsulate what this journey has been, it's Sebastian Haller. He gets the winner. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, even if you wanted to. It's the way that this has unfolded is unbelievable. I don't have too much on a big picture to take away from this, other than it's been nearly a decade, as I was talking about, since Ivory Coast have really been a factor on the international stage, a factor at AFCON, World Cups, all of that kind of stuff. Of course, storied history, some absolutely incredible players have come out of this country. So really cool to see them back getting the spotlight here. I just refuse to take big conclusions away from tournaments that played out exactly like this one. This is why you just can't draw too much from this, other than this is an incredible story. Look at the way it played out. Congratulations, Ivory Coast. Really, really cool. They almost didn't make it to the knockout stage. They came from behind a bunch of times and just had everything fall their way. I don't know what that means, other than they were clearly the team of destiny and they pulled this off, and it's incredible. So I'm just going to leave it there because I don't think there is any more to take away from this. An opportunity presented itself because you get that do-over in the knockout stage once you get there. They took full advantage, full credit to them. Incredible, incredible journey, the way that the country came around them. Sebastian Haller being the one to actually deliver the win over Nigeria. Incredible stuff, so congratulations, Ivory Coast. Last thing I want to throw out there. Watching that Manchester United-Aston Villa game today, Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay is Manchester United's leading scorer in the Premier League this season. Scott McTominay has scored some massive goals. Scott McTominay has delivered. There was, and certainly I was part of this too, this idea that he just wasn't good enough, he wasn't cutting it at United. Maybe that's still true to a certain extent. All I know is he makes things happen. He has been massive for that club. Think about where they would be without him and the goals that he has scored this season. He comes up with another huge one as they're trying to get their way back into this Champions League race, trying to make sure at least they qualify for the Europa League. So I just wanted to take a minute to give a shout out to Scott McTominay because he has really, really made himself an impactful player. When it was easy to write him off, easy to get discouraged, you just feel like he's not really a starting 11 caliber player at United, and that might be the case. He doesn't let any of that bother him. He is just showing up and making things happen for a team that needs more players to show up and make things happen. So good for you, Scott McTominay. Wanted to acknowledge that as well. That is all for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.